I've seen very many people this week misunderstanding Trump's plan for the economy. The first step, they believe, is he is crashing the stock market on purpose. They believe that this will increase demand for U.S. treasuries. And then they believe that increased demand for U.S. treasuries will result in interest rates going down. And then they believe low interest rates will allow Trump to refinance the national debt. This is something they made up. This is not a real thing. And none of this is how any of this works. Which is very frustrating, as you can imagine, for someone like me. Let's start at the beginning. Crashing the stock market on purpose. He keeps saying that he's going to impose 25% tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. And he keeps going back and forth on this plan, which has resulted in repeated downturns in the stock market. Here's the thing about that. If the stock market is particularly tumultuous, does that mean people are going to buy something more secure, like U.S. treasuries? Maybe. However, there is not an infinite amount of U.S. treasuries on the market for people to buy. The U.S. government must issue them, and they issue a finite amount of them. And even if we saw a surge in demand for U.S. treasuries, that does not affect interest rates. Interest rates and the demand for U.S. bonds are totally separate things. There is not a supply and demand relationship there. The Fed considers things like economic growth, the labor market, what prices look like. They set interest rates because their thinking is if they make it more expensive to borrow money, take out a loan, you're paying a higher interest rate, less people will do it. And then we'll see less growth in businesses, less people starting new businesses, there will be less jobs, so less people will have money because less people will be working. And workers are not as likely to ask for raises or negotiate for better benefits or find a new job with better pay and benefits. They're more likely to stay where they are and accept less, which means less money in the pockets of the workers, which means less people are spending money into the economy, and they believe that demand will be down and therefore prices will be down. I would push back on that and say that if more people are working, they would be producing more. Supply would go up as well. They don't see it that way. They kind of use this as a tool to keep workers' wages low, because when wages are low, profits are high, which is good for the stock market. But what's most important is that you know this process has next to nothing to do with how many people are interested in buying U.S. treasuries. Think about why people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk want low interest rates. How do they make money? Elon bought X by leveraging his Tesla stock to get what? A loan from a bank that he will have to what? Pay interest on. This is how these guys make money. They take the capital that they already have and they keep it in place as an investment, making more money while simultaneously using that money as leverage to get a loan from a bank to then acquire a business that they can make more money off of. That's why they want interest rates to be low. It has nothing to do with refinancing the debt, because it's not a real thing. I looked up what they could possibly be talking about. It turns out the Heritage Foundation came up with this idea that we take our existing debt, which is different from the deficit. The deficit can merely be seen as a tracker of how many dollars the US government has put into the economy and has not taxed back out yet. The debt is the actual money the US government has sold in treasuries and will have to pay out once they mature. Let's pause there. Why do foreign governments want US treasuries and bonds in the first place? Because when you go shopping online on like TikTok Shop or Temu or Shein, you pay like $5 for a t-shirt, let's say. Now some Chinese company has your $5 American, they take that money, they trade it in, and then the Chinese government is stuck with all of these US dollars, and they take these US dollars and they put them essentially in a savings account by buying US treasuries that earn interest. US dollars are in demand globally. People want to have them. Foreign debt is nothing more than an exchange that happens between two countries, and lots of foreign governments have US treasuries. And what these people believe is that when it comes time that these bonds mature, the US government will be unable to pay them, which is fundamentally not true. And they're calling this refinancing the debt, is issuing new bonds to pay off old ones, when instead the US government could take the bonds that are earning a higher interest rates than maybe current interest rates are set, and they could press a button to pay them off. That's it. And they don't need to issue new bonds in order to pay that off, which means they would still be paying interest on these dollars. They would pay more than the existing debt that they have. paying off U.S. treasuries by issuing new U.S. treasuries is more expensive than literally creating the dollars. Even if, in some fantastical world, there was a magic man we had to pay these dollars back to, there is no one the federal government has to pay dollars back to because they create the currency. If people don't buy government bonds at all, there's no demand for them. Who the fuck cares? Just think for a second about who buys bonds, okay? It's people who are so wealthy that they can afford to have some of their money just sit in an account and turn into more money. It is people with extra money sitting around. It is a cash wealth transfer that the government is making to the wealthiest people in the society, when instead they can just vote to spend dollars. This is something that Donald Trump did in order to issue stimulus checks because everybody recognized that the economy needed additional cash flow at that time in order to stimulate it to avoid a recession under COVID, and it did. And Donald Trump himself said that it's fine to spend that money. Putting new dollars into the economy is a part of growing the economy. Where the US government puts in new dollars and how many they put in is absolutely a careful calculation that depends on a few factors. You want to make sure it's not inflationary spending. You want to make sure that those dollars will go on to have goods and services that they can purchase or have real productive capacity that can be put to use to grow the economy in the same way that a bank would make a determination about issuing a loan, that there would be a good return on investment. The US government makes the same consideration as, will this be a good return for the US economy? Those are the real considerations made, not the made-up ones. Anytime the US government has not put sufficient dollars that are new into the economy, it has driven businesses and banks into debt. Instead, the new money is coming from the private sector, banks and businesses. And whenever we've seen the private sector take on a lot of debt, the result of that has been a recession. We saw it happen under Bill Clinton when he was boasting about government surpluses and balancing the budget. We saw the economy plunged into a recession because they are fundamentally misunderstanding what the deficit and debt are. Meanwhile, you have the wealthiest people in our society convincing the public that it is financially irresponsible to spend money, but they don't bat an eye whenever they're voting for a defense bill. But instead, they are very upset whenever we try and spend money on things that benefit the working class, like healthcare and education and jobs trainings programs and roads, because they would rather the American public be dependent on them for minimal wages, and then also spending the money that they do get to meet their most basic needs so that they can profit off of every facet of American life. And the same people that are spending money to push this narrative that the deficit is bad are the same people who use the measly dollars we give them to fuel their yachts and live a very comfortable life. They are the same people pushing this narrative, and for some reason, we are not questioning it. Why do we question things that wealthy people tell us? But for some reason, when it comes to economics, we assume that they've got it all worked out and everything they're telling us is true because these are very smart people who have some kind of calculation that they've made and they've decided that we cannot have nice things. It's about damn time we check their math. And so please, when you get economic information from the internet, just search up who it's coming from, who pays them, who they work for, and what their interests might be. Because we cannot trust all of the information that's out there, especially if they work for some large foundation that has political lobbying money going into it. If you would not trust the very wealthy elite people to make good public policy on every other front, please do not trust what they have to say about what is going on with our economy.